Welcome. This is Bill Donahue with Discerning Truth. Today is on Friday. We call it Freaky Fridays because you never know what I'll talk about. Might be aliens, UFOs, pyramids. Today we're talking about the beast economic system. What is it? What's going on? Most of us know that the World Economic Forum, the Klaus Hobbes, the cabal, if you want, has been trying to implement a global economy, a global reset, they call it. And we could see them working at it. And then President Trump took over, and his economy that he's implementing looks a lot like the global reset. There are significant differences, but it does look similar. So I thought today what I would do is look at the passages in the Bible. And those of you that know me know that I don't really, push for the idea of interpreting Revelation literally, because that's not the genre of the book. It's apocalyptic literature. It uses a bunch of literary devices that aren't to be taken literally, but it is common for it to be taken literally, and or any of the other passages, like the Antichrist talks about a wound in the head of the beast. And when President Trump was shot, in the bullet nicked his ear in Pennsylvania, right? I called my friend Michael in California, and I said, within the hour, there'll be some prophecy teacher saying this is the proof that Trump's the Antichrist. And within the hour, it happened. The wound is to the head of the beast that empowers Antichrist, not necessarily to Antichrist. A wound that you would think would have killed him, perhaps having his head crushed by the foot of the Messiah, as Genesis 3:15 talks about, is that wound, and that you would think it would have killed the devil, right? But the devil is alive and able to empower Antichrist. It can be taken very symbolically. And so if you know me, that's kind of where I come from, is interpreting the Bible in the within the way it's revealed. And we're going to start right out. I'm just going to jump right into the passage and read it to you. Right? So, like I said, the futurist interpretation of biblical prophecy, a lot of it looks at the book of Revelation as describing a centralized authoritarian economic system that controls global commerce. And they base it on Revelation 13:16-18. And it says, also it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark that is in the name of the beast or the number of his name. This calls for wisdom. For let one who has come to understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. This gets into all kinds of issues, gematria, different stuff that I'm not going to deal with today, right? Because I'm kind of focused on the economic system. But this passage suggests a global economic system where participation in commerce requires a specific mark, right? Implying a highly controlled, possibly digital, it doesn't say digital, but digital economy makes this easy, or a technological mechanism for transaction enforced by the Antichrist's regime. The system is totalitarian, restricting economic access to those who pledge their allegiance to Antichrist by indication by the mark. And I was getting ready to go online, and I realized I had not included in the study anything about whether the mark is literal or not. And it's a lot of people take it very literally, like you're going to microchip in your hand or your forehead. Other people take it symbolically. And you go, well, it says you're getting a mark. Why wouldn't it be, literal? Because of the symbolic nature of the book of Revelation, right? It uses all kinds of highly vivid imagery, beasts, horns, seals, convey spiritual truths. Also in the book of Revelation, you had the 144,000 marked, and that has an Old Testament precedent for that sealing. When you look in Revelation 7, 3, and 4, and the sealing of the 144,000, right? You go, where did that come from? Where's that idea come from? It's coming from them being marked by God in the Deuteronomy 6:6-8, where it says, "And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall bind them as a sign to your hand, and they shall be frontlets between your eyes." Now, that's metaphorically about putting the law in your heart. But some Orthodox Jews actually do have little scrolls containing the Shema, that section of Deuteronomy 6:4-9, 11:13, and Exodus 13:1-16 is combined, called the Shema, the Shema of Israel. And those passages will be written on a little scroll, put in a little container called a tefillin, sometimes all called phylacteries. They're a little tiny container, and you'll see them with ribbons or bands holding them around their wrists so that they sit on the back of the right hand, or around their head where the actual little phylacteries right on their forehead. They take this very literally. Okay, in Ezekiel 9:4-6, we have a marking for protection, right? And it says, "And the Lord said to him, pass through the city, through Jerusalem, put a mark on the forehead of every man who sigh or groan over the abomination that has committed it. Do not touch anyone who has the mark." So did Ezekiel, who was in Babylon, literally go back to Jerusalem and mark everybody? No. He's talking about spiritual alignment rather than a physical thing, right? So your hand is what you act with. Your forehead is what you think with. It implies decision making, right? So a lot of people take this mark as non-literal, but I tell you, sometimes it can be both. It can have a non-literal interpretation, and it might actually have a literal application too. Maybe we are looking at microchips or something. But that wasn't the focus of today's study. I really was getting ready to stream, and that idea came into my head that I probably should have included it. So you're getting special information that's not in my notes, okay? So what are the characteristics of the system, right? You have centralized control. The requirement of a mark to buy or sell suggests a unified system that monitors and regulates economic activity, likely administered by a global authority. Right now, we have people that monitor everything we buy and sell. Or you have computer devices and Alexa and your phone listening to what you say. If you want to know this, just set your phone down and start talking about a specific product that is for sale, and that product will show up in ads for you. Okay? They're listening, they're monitoring to everything you do right now. They're using a digital system to do that. The mark, whether it's literal or symbolic, implies a sophisticated system for tracking individuals and their transactions, possibly through advanced technology. Okay? The computer technology is advancing at speeds that are just mind-boggling. What AI has done in advancements in the last 12 months, it's just mind-blowing, okay? I have friends that do memes, and what they could do with the meme without AI was always fun. But now that they've added AI into doing memes, they can make videos to make you think it really happened, okay? They made a video of Martin Luther King Jr. endorsing Trump. It caused the left to melt down before the election, but I said it really looked like it was real. They marked it as being fake, that it was a meme and came from the Dilly meme team, but they didn't try to deceive people. But it was that good using AI. There has to be an exclusionary mechanism in the system, because those without the mark are excluded from economic participation, indicating a system designed to enforce compliance through an economic coercion. And there has to be global reach because it says everybody, all, both small and great, both rich and poor. That's everybody's going to participate in this system. Now, additional passages like Revelation 17, 12, and 13, and Daniel 7, 23 to 25 describe a final empire uniting people or nations described as kings under one ruler, suggesting a global political or economic condition, right? I mean, this system is here, and if you were paying attention to the global reset from the World Economic Forum, they definitely were trying to impose this on us. So the shift of the global economy features some of the futurist interpretations and precursors for the system. Maybe not the system itself, but they're very, very similar. We're going to digital currencies. Ready or not, here we come. It's happening. We still can use cash, but we're moving to a cashless economy. And there already exist mechanisms to control the use of cash or digital money. Agencies like the IRS can seize your bank account without a trial, without a verdict, a court order, or even a hearing. Sometimes they do it without, they don't even notify you. Your notification is when you show up at the bank and your money's missing. Okay? Transactions exceeding $10,000 in cash must be reported by every bank or financial institution. And if they see you making multiple transactions that add up to more than $10,000, they have to report that as well. So you can't even do a bunch of $9,000 transactions to stay under the limit, or even $5,000. If you look like you're transferring more than $10,000, they have to report you to the government. And I used to build banking networks. And even back then, you're talking 20 years ago now, a program created by the CIA at Systematics out of Arkansas was tied into every banking system that I worked on. Okay? They have currently absolute knowledge of everything you spend money on when it goes through any kind of banking system. Current trends, we're seeing central bank digital currencies, CBDCs are what they're called. Now, a difference between the global reset and Trump's policies is Donald Trump does not want a central bank digital currency for the United States. He's looking at a more decentralized system. But most countries in the world have a central bank and they have centralized digital currencies. Okay? Now, China's digital yuan, right? Y-A-U-N, how do you, yuan, is in the EU's digital euro pilots. These systems that they're doing enable governments to track your transaction in real time, similar to the control implied by the beast system. Like currently, China's central bank digital currency requiring a digital ID for a transaction. So not only is your currency digital, you need a digital ID for you to do any transaction. Okay? As the cashless systems expand, and their expansion is happening at a rate I didn't expect to get here before 2030, and we may be here before 2026, okay? But as cashless systems expand, governments or global institutions could mandate digital wallets or IDs for all financial activities resembling an exclusionary mark. If they make you get a digital ID to do any business, you're already in there. You know, you're doing it. Anybody that trades electronically, trading crypto, you trading in stocks and stuff, you already know you have a digital ID. If you're doing this online, you're not going in and showing your driver's license to them to prove who you are to buy stocks. You do all that. You prove who you are, where you live. You do it to set up the digital ID, and then that digital ID is used from that point on. You have global financial integration. This is what's happening at lightning speed. The global integration's already happening, right? The international framework. SWIFT is the system right now, the primary system between banks and institutions in different countries. They got to send money to each other. The other one is called the Banking for International Settlements, the BIS. So those two systems conduct almost all cross-border payments. You also have the BIS's project called mBridge, and it aims to link these central bank digital currencies globally, creating a unified digital payment system. They're trying to do that. The problem with BIS and SWIFT is they're slow and expensive. It's why they're probably going to go away, but they're already, moving to get there, and they're trying to fix their speed and cost issue. So a fully integrated global financial system could centralize economic control, aligning with Revelation's depiction of a singular authority over commerce. This is exactly what the World Economic Forum was trying to do. And while President Trump's policies are getting us into that system, he's thrown a monkey wrench into that central control. He's letting the EU control what happens in there, and us control what happens here, and the Asian countries control what they're doing. He doesn't want one person in the world having control, where the World Economic Forum was trying to bring it under a singular control. Now, you have biometric or digital ID systems, and this is suggested by the mark, right? That something is letting it have positive ID of who you are. And biometric technologies like facial recognition or digital IDs already exist. They're increasing in your identity. When I go online and do a lot of things, my phone has to do facial recognition. And if I don't wear my hat, it doesn't recognize me, and I have to punch in a digital code to get into my account. Now, you think that's just your choice. The UN's Digital ID 2030 agenda is to make that required for everybody in the world. Okay? A global digital ID system, and they're gonna tell you it's to stop fraud, and that will be one effect of it. But you've got to understand, if they're trying to stop fraud, how are they going to do this? Facial recognition, you can buy a mask that looks like my face, put it on, and I don't know that the face recognition software is going to know the difference. So they might even have subdermal chips, something under your skin, the way we mark antelope and different animals here in this country. In areas that like antelope are protected, you shoot an antelope, and Fish and Game will know, and they'll be there and before you could get the animal skinned, okay? Because they're tracking all the microchips in those animals. Sweden's already doing microchip implants. This could mirror the mark if the mark is literal, right? It is possible. If it's spiritual, it might not be the mark of the beast, but it's awful close. And if it's literal, it definitely looks like it. The beast economic system is going to have some kind of surveillance mechanism. Currently, we're moving to social credit systems like China. They tie economic privileges like travel or getting loans to your behavior and compliance online. You posted some hateful meme, you don't get a loan at the bank, right? So, and then they monitor your activity on all the digital platforms, and they can refuse to include you in the system if you don't comply. This is very similar to Revelation 13. As AI and blockchain technologies advance, governments are corporations could enforce compliance through real-time monitoring of transactions or behaviors, potentially on a global scale. I'm telling you, they already do. Not to this level, but they do to a certain thing. Everybody's got policies, how much money you can move, what you can do with this and that. And you're going, it's my money. How come you're telling me what I can do with it? Right? They block you from access. You can have all the money you want in your account. And if the IRS puts a lien on your account, they can lock all your country. There's a lot of agencies in the US government currently that can do this. As this is moving forward, there's going to be a lot of agencies in the world that can do this. And that's what Trump's trying to do, is keep that control in the United States. But he's not giving up control of the government. They will still have that control over your economy. Now, global governance and economic coalitions. This is where the World Economic Forum and President Trump's policies really diverge. The World Economic Forum, the cabal, the people that are doing this, the people looking for the Great Reset, like the World Economic Forum, they are moving, and they were moving towards a centralized world economy where you owned nothing, but you were happy. Remember hearing that kind of stuff? Okay? And a stronger global governance structure, possibly led by a coalition of nations or a supranational entity, like the EU's, over a bunch of nations, could consolidate economic power, very much resembling what we see in both Daniel and Revelation. The beast system isn't in the future. It may be, not in the distant future, which as fast as we're moving there, you can see this very quickly. Now, I don't know if Jesus is coming back in today or 100 years from now. I don't know. But I'm telling you, in 1970s, we were certain the rapture was happening no later than in the early 80s. Now, that time has come and gone. When I look at the world now, there's a far more signs that we're at the end than there was in the 70s, and we were dead certain it was going to end. So I'm just showing you. So while these 10 show parallels, the futuristic interpretations vary on whether the mark is literal, like a physical implant, or symbolic, like allegiance to a system. So some Christians caution against equating the technologies like central bank digital currencies or digital IDs with biblical prophecy, citing the risk of over speculation. And I want to say that I don't want to over speculate here, but there is clear alignment that I can see in a lot of this stuff that could be a possible, hear me, possible fulfillment. Now, why this came up recently is, and people that know me know I'm invested in cryptocurrency, right? And that in that, and I also use AI in my Bible studies. I started that a couple months ago. Super helpful tool to me to be able to, if I know what I'm looking for, I had to write up a whole script to make sure AI wouldn't lie to me, would only use credible references. I have a half-page script that goes before any question, and I tested a bunch of AIs to see which one worked for me the best. And the deep think mode on Grok works the best for my policies. What's called hallucinations is AI lying to you. It only hallucinates about 20% of the time right now. Okay? So 80% of the time it'll tell you the truth. 20% of the time, not so much. Certain AIs like ChatGPT score even higher rates of hallucinations. Unacceptable. There are things you can do to help that, and I did a stream on, or I wrote a paper on Substack on AI hallucinations. I don't think I did a stream on it. So I've had Christians say, why are you going to do this? Why are you using AI when it looks like something a Bible or Antichrist is doing? Why are you in a digital currency when that looks like the beast system? So my first reply is that I see these things as tools. just like any other tool. I can use a hammer to build a house, or I can smash you in the head with the hammer. The hammer isn't good or evil. It's I choose what to do with the hammer. I choose how to use AI. I choose how to use digital currencies. But I'm telling you, somebody tells me that I got to take a mark on my hand or my forehead, I'm out of here. Right? So I see the move to digital economy and a global reset of the financial markets as inevitable. I don't see any way to stop it. I don't see anybody in power trying to stop it. Right? The global reset envisioned by the World Economic Forum and the one of President Trump seems to be working on. They are different, but they share a lot of things in common. Because Trump's policies create a paradox. They catalyze economic change, potentially aligning with what the World Economic Forum calls for in the reset by shaking up the globalization and with a unilateral nationalist bent that he has. It clashes with the World Economic Forum view of a coordinated, inclusive reform. For instance, while his tariffs might force supply chain diversification, which is one of the goals of the World Economic Forum, they risk economic turmoil that could deepen inequality, contradicting the reset's equitable aims. The global reset, the World Economic Forum wanted to make us all equal. Well, the U.S. is a pretty rich country, so for us to be equal, we have to lose money. Trump's saying, nah, we're going to continue to lead and we're going to make money. We're going to lead this economic reset out. Two totally different aims using the exact same tools, right? Now, the World Economic Forum's, their global reset assumed an elite-driven consensus. All the cabal people, they're going to get together and decide what's good for us, and they're going to make it. When Trump went to Davos in 2025, his remarks emphasized America's prosperity over global harmony. In his partial tariff pause, that 90 days, right, at 10% for most countries, was less about global cooperation than domestic politics, because people here were getting excited and prices were going crazy, and you had possible shortages of things, and Trump did a pause. He also, that these tariffs, my investments took a hit, significant hit because of the tariffs. I'm not worried because I'm not selling anytime soon, but probably 35% loss since February. That, and a lot of that happened in one day with a tariff announcement. But you have to understand the tariffs serve a purpose. And that purpose is contrary to what the World Economic Forum was trying to do with their global economic reset. And while they disrupt outdated systems and promote economic resilience, their protectionist, deregulatory, and anti-climate stance diverges from the World Economic Forum's multilateral, sustainability-focused vision. The reset Trump oversees is nationalist, reordering, not global overhaul that the World Economic does. His actions may force a rethink of global economics, but they prioritize American interest over cooperative goals of the World Economic is the big us, the whole world. Yeah, we're all getting together. We're doing this together. And Trump's in, to heck with us. I'm here for the people that elected me. I'm here for the thing. And you may not be a Trump fan, whatever. I'm just trying to explain to you, this is the difference. Now, I've had people question cryptocurrencies, ask me things. I even sent some information to some people. And I'm going to tell you right now, in my opinion, most cryptocurrencies are Ponzi schemes. And the market is replete with pump and dump scenarios that inflate prices artificially and then shear the sheep. Even the Trump coin did that. They released the Trump coin. The price went crazy. The people that got in early made a ton of money, and they shared the sheep, and then everybody else lost money. Now, until the USA passes crypto regulations, and they're still moving, they're getting out of committee in the Congress. You still see this, the Senate needs to act. But we are 4 years. We had 4 years with an administration that did nothing, except for try to, I don't know, people that didn't understand what was happening and put the U.S. four years behind the world. We are catching up. And if Congress actually shows up to work instead of taking 2 weeks off every month, we might get there. But they have the most part-time job I ever seen. And then they come in and they'll pass a bill in the middle of the night like they've been working around the clock. Yeah, if you actually showed up 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, you'd have had everything passed. I'm so sick of Congress and the Senate, it's not even funny. But we have U.S., what's coming in the U.S., crypto regulations, what we think is coming, is that you want to have some security for investors. Right now, if you've never invested in these digital markets, you're responsible for all your own security. And if you leave your money on a custodial wallet, like an exchange at Binance or Uphold or Robinhood or whatever, and they're taking care of your money, you can lose it all. If they go bankrupt, your money goes away. So what's part of what's coming in, what's called the Clarity Bill, and is to make sure that they can't mix their money and your money. And they can't loan your money back out. That your money, if they're holding your money, they're actually holding your money. Okay? And so there are some good things in the U.S. regulations to give you some protection. But most people are likely not going to directly invest in, they're not going to go out and open up a cryptocurrency account and then buy crypto and do all that stuff. But as more assets become tokenized, and tokenization is when you assign a digital value to something, real estate, art, you could do it to anything of value. And then when what you're trading is the digital representation of that value. That's happening, and because it's a lot easier to move that way. And you can have digital, some things like Hedera has a coin called HBAR. It's excellent at this. Let's say I'm digitizing a piece of real estate. Well, what if I could move to you all the real estate history, the transaction history of that property, all the improvements, all that stuff? That all comes to you digitally when you buy the tokenized asset. That's an improvement, right? You don't have to go do all your stuff. That's coming. Now, even if you never say, I'm never going to invest in crypto, I'm never going to do this stuff, you bring your paycheck to the bank and you deposit it, your bank is going to turn that into a digital asset. And they're going to move it as a digital asset around in their system and between their system and the systems used by other banks. That's how it'll move. They have to, because it's cheaper and faster. And if the bank can save money, you're not going to tell them, I don't want to participate. They're going to do what saves them money, right? And like I said, I mentioned above that in my opinion, this is my opinion, most cryptocurrencies are Ponzi schemes because they're not backed by anything. Now, the US dollar is what's called a fiat currency. It's not backed by gold or anything like that. It's backed by the good faith and credit of the US government. That's what backs our US dollar. But there's nothing similar backing most cryptocurrencies. Even Bitcoin, who's the biggest crypto in the market, it dominates the crypto market. There's nothing backing it. Your Bitcoin maxis, the people that love Bitcoin will tell you it's a decentralized nature and stuff. That's nothing. It may make this valuable to you or somebody and a preferred, but it's not a backing. Now there are cryptocurrencies that called utilities or digital currencies uh, that actually do stuff, and they drive down the cost of business on a global scale, and they do things. Ethereum, BNB, ADA, Solana, all of those, and are utilities that are used. And to give you an example, when I first looked at crypto back in 2020, I missed Solana just totally. I mean, my son and I were looking at stuff, we missed it. Had we spotted the utility of Solana and invested $5,000 in 2020, it'd be worth about $450,000 today. Solana has outperformed everybody. I don't know if it has another 9,000% in the future. It may be too late to get that kind of return, but that's the kind of return that's possible. And what drew me to the crypto market is that, if you pick right once, you can make some money. Now, I'm not shy that my biggest bet is on XRP. And it's not, you could call it a utility, but it really is a bridge currency. Okay? It's designed to bridge between all the different central bank coins or whatever that want to trade together. It's doing this. So I'm going to explain to you how this is different. Now let's assume a bank needs to transfer $1 billion to a bank in a different country. The current system they're going to use is called SWIFT. To make the transfer, Bank A and Bank B, Bank A puts the $1 billion into SWIFT. It no longer has it, and Bank B doesn't have it. It'll stay in SWIFT in the system for 3 to 7 plus days. Depends on how long, what countries are involved in stuff, but you're going to do this. The transfer cost for that $1 billion could be over $10,000. Okay? And it could be much higher depending on what countries are involved. Okay? So you're tying up $1 billion worth of liquidity for a week or more in that one transaction. There are trillions of dollars transacted every day. That's a lot of money tied up in a system that's slow and expensive. Now, while Bitcoin isn't a utility token, it is possible to move $1 billion with Bitcoin to someone in another country. You can put it on a cold wallet and then carry that cold wallet there, get it there pretty quickly. But if you're doing an electronic transfer, right, you could either use the Bitcoin's network, it's local network, right? Or you can use some third parties will transfer Bitcoin for you. The transfer is going to be cheaper than SWIFT, but still slow and expensive. Now, Bitcoin claims they can move that much money in 10 minutes. And if it's only $1 billion, they might be. It's a slow system and an expensive system, and you have to do mining and consolidation and stuff like that. It can take 3 to 7 plus days on SWIFT. It might take 10 minutes, but it could be much longer on a Bitcoin network. Bitcoin network is known to bog, right, and get slowed down. Now, a transfer on Bitcoin typically costs about $1 to $50, ranging on what's going on. But a transaction this size might have to be broken down into multiple transactions. You could be paying hundreds of dollars, right, for this transaction. There's another problem here. Bitcoin's network is not compliant with the existing regulations governing transactions in the EU, Asia, BRICS nations, and in the United States. Starting November, all banks that want to connect have to be ISO 2022 compliant. And that's a messaging system. That's not the coin itself. It's a message that goes with the coin for the banks and its transaction. So since you need to send this money using Bitcoin and it doesn't have a compliant network, it has to be in a wrap transaction, right, with somebody else that can move it in a compliant network thing. And then if the person receiving a Bitcoin needs to exchange that Bitcoin for the digital currency of the stable coin in their issued by their central bank, there's another cost and more delays. So Bitcoin's a huge improvement on Swift, but way behind a lot of other technologies. Now, there are multiple networks out there trying to get that business, moving trillions of dollars. And if we digitize assets, stocks, real estate, it'll be quadrillions of dollars moving on the network. There's a lot of companies looking for it. But we thought, even back in 2020, that Ripple looked like it was the best position to take a big chunk of that market. And Ripple uses XRP. That's why I'm part of the XRP army, okay? Because it looked like to me they're going to get a major thing. They're already linked to over 100 central banks around the world. They are ISO 2022 compliant. They are compliant with the EU and BRICS and Asian countries. They're ready to go, right? Now, the transaction fees for that on a Ripple network are priced at 0.00001 XRP. XRP currently like 2.25 or something, 220. That is a fraction of a cent. Even we expect XRP is going to go up in value, but even if you go on the high end at $10,000 and you do that percentage, it's still about $1 to move $1 billion. You're a bank. You need to move $1 billion. You can either tie it up for 7+ days and pay hundreds of dollars, or you can move it in 3 to 5 seconds and pay $1. Which one are you going to choose? Banks and institutions set transactions like this amounting into trillions of dollars on a daily basis. Like I said, once you get the tokenization of assets like stocks and real estates and other assets well underway, we're talking about a global digital economy in the quadrillions. Banks and institutions have estimated that they're going to save more than $1 trillion every year using a regulatory compliant digital network like Ripple. Do you think they're not going to make this choice if they can save $1 trillion a year? It's absolutely coming. Ready or not, here we come into the digital economy that's going to look very much like the beast. The only thing we're really missing is that kind of mark. And if you don't make the mark literal and you take it symbolic, we're kind of here. We already use digital payment systems. Credit cards are digital. Apple Pay, Cash App. There's dozens of other ways to pay that are digital payment systems right now. And if you put your check in, your paycheck into the bank, or we deposit cash, your bank almost instantly turns that into digital money. Sometimes it takes them a couple of days. They got to get the money to a central bank, and then it's transacted. But it basically, think about it, you're putting in cash. When you go back, you can get cash. But once it's in the system, it's digital, right? So I looked at, this system, and I told you all the IRS needs to do is claim you owe them money, and they can drain your entire bank account. They don't have to get a court order. They don't have to even give you a hearing. Numerous government agencies can flag your accounts, which would result in you losing access to your funds. Your credit cards, converting everything to digital currency just makes it easier for them. And for those people that like cash, they can control everything cash you can still use. How long do you think that's going to last? Now, we chose to invest into utility tokens and bridge currencies back in 2020 because we saw value in them, right? And I don't do stuff for other reasons than it looked like it was a good deal. Now, I've talked to Bruce Banner, that's on with Ron, all the time, and he does day trading. You try to pick the low and the high. He's got all these charts and all that stuff. And the reason I don't do day trading is studies have shown, different studies come up with ranges between 90 and 99% of day traders lose money over a given year. Well, the system stacked against me. That's like betting against the house. you know, gambling. So I don't do that. And that's the reason I don't do it. But I want you to understand, I don't know if Jesus is coming back today, tomorrow, 100 years from now. But my view of the end times holds that Jesus isn't coming back into after the tribulation. And I base that on comparing Matthew 24:29 to 31. And he comes after the tribulation, but before the day of the Lord, like Joel 2:30 to 32 and Revelation 6:17. And it's accompanied by signs in the sun and the moon, which you're going to find in all those passages, including Revelation 6:12. Right? So I hold that view. But I speculate that the return of Jesus is likely to happen in the next 3.5 years because I hold that view. But if you're pre-tribulation and you think Jesus could come today, right? That's fine. But I'm not preparing for the end of the world. I want to be prepared to meet God any day and be ready for Jesus to return, because I could drop dead today and meet God immediately. But depending on where you live, we could experience any wide variety of natural disasters that'll turn your lives upside down. Minor changes in the economy have drastic impact on various sectors of that economy. Now, I'll explain to you one. My son-in-law owns a trucking company out of Los Angeles. A lot of product comes in from China. Trump just settled a deal with China, but for a while there was all these tariffs going back and forth from China to us, trying to get to a point where we're in an agreement. It shut down the imports. There were no Chinese imports coming in. There were no Chinese imports getting on trucks. If your job was to haul Chinese imports from the port or warehouses outside the port, like my son-in-law's, across country, suddenly there was a lot less need for you. A lot of people lost their jobs. And those that were trying to keep their jobs, you had more people fighting for a smaller piece of the pie. All that was based on trying to get a trade deal with China. Now those jobs will probably come back. But that if you're hand to mouth, week to week, feeding your family, just that could wipe you out, economically. A war breaking out. I know they're distracting us with the news is all focused on the, what do you call it? Unrest, supposed unrest in these cities. Israel just bombed Iran. Iran is retaliating. Russia was absolutely devastating Ukraine while everybody else was watching this stuff. The magician always shows you one hand while he's doing the trick with the other hand. This is what's happening. You're being asked to look at stuff that doesn't really matter while the big stuff's going on. But that can wipe you out. A lot of times the stock market crashes, oil and gold prices go through the roof with just the rumor of war, right? So I'm trying to be prepared for that stuff. And I'm suggesting you should be too. Now, I'll tell you, when we moved to Kauai, we became far less prepared. I love Kauai. It's been a dream to live on Kauai for 40 years, and it was always just out of reach for us. We couldn't make it happen. So when opportunity presented itself for us to move, we jumped at it, we moved. But that move, while it fulfilled the dream for us, it devastated our state of preparedness. On our ranch in California, we grew and raised much of our own food. Our water came from a well. I had designed and built a hybrid solar system with a large solar array and batteries, being the primary source of our whole ranch. It was set up so that it could switch to the utility grid if we needed it, if the batteries went low. You have 3-4 days of storm, the batteries don't last forever. So it would switch back, but we primarily lived off grid. We did a lot of canning, and I'm not talking tin cans. I'm talking old school canning in a pressure cooker where you can food. Had tons of it there done. We could have literally stayed on the ranch for months. Self-sufficient. That was prepared. Now, a fire broke out in the area and it took power lines down. The grid went down for a whole major area. We weren't affected because I was living off grid, right? But most people found out that their wells need power to run. So they not only had no power, they had no water. And it became quickly urgent. Animals had no water to drink. It was an issue. So what we did after that fire is we organized the neighbors who were prepared, and we were hauling water and ice and food up the hill back and forth. I mean, I don't know how many trips I made with a big stake bed truck bringing stuff up there to keep people in. One team that was servicing generators that had been sitting idle, nobody tested them. And then you had the electric company was trying to get a large amount of generators to people so they could have power. The first 10 days, there was no power on that mountain. After that, power started getting, you got power a couple hours a day. And that was helpful until after, it was like 20, 21 days when they actually had the power fully restored. That can happen to anybody. Now, what frustrated me is shortly after we did all that stuff, I saw one of those generators for sale and the ad said no longer needed. And I asked the guy, what do you mean no longer needed? He says, well, if this ever happens again, you'll be at the community hall taking care of me. I said, no, I won't. This is a one and done. I'm not here as your nanny. You need to be prepared, right? You definitely don't want to be selling your preparedness, right? And that's what I'm suggesting. Modern Christians living in the Western world, we've been lulled into a twisted view of history. Either we have never experienced persecution or it's generally been minor, right? The government says you can't get together for church because of some supposed pandemic. That's minor persecution. That's not been the Christian experience for most people for the last 2,000 plus years. The vast majority of Christians have been taken as slaves or killed for their faith, right? They've had their assets seized. This coming global digital system that in many ways is already here just makes that persecution easier on a global scale. It's not new, but it's there. And even though Trump's plan kind of disrupts it a little bit, there's enough similarity that as soon as a different leader gets in that's more globally inclined, it could easily be used for evil. Now, the vast majority of Christians have lived and died without seeing the return of Christ. But most of them lived through tribulation in this world, troubles, far greater than we're living through. It might not be the great tribulation, but it's like the old saying, a recession is when your neighbor loses his job. A depression is when you lose your job, right? When it personally affects you. Just because you or I might not be suffering today, that doesn't mean that no Christians are suffering. There's Christians suffering around the world. I'm not just talking about Christians in other countries. The USA is an affluent nation. But there are many people in it, including Christian people, who are struggling with all manner of trials, tribulation, and financial hardships. I have a good friend online that I know struggles to find food to eat. He's having real trouble getting a job and putting food on the table or paying the electric bill or buying internet's a big issue, right? That worst case scenario can come to any of us, with or without the Great Tribulation. Like I said, if you lose your job and you can't find a new one, you can be in financial trouble very, very quickly. Most American families, one or two paychecks that they're out and they're in financial distress. So at this point, I want to talk to you about where we were in 2020, how we figured any of this out, right? And I looked at the shift of the digital economy, and I saw it, and I said, this could be the greatest wealth building opportunity I've ever seen in my lifetime. This is the first new asset class since oil became an asset class, and it fueled the Industrial Revolution. Try to think of that. Trying to participate in this digital revolution will be about as hard, or trying not to participate, it's going to be about as hard as it would have been to opt out of the Industrial Revolution. It's going to affect you whether or not you're permanently involved or not. So I chose to use the beneficial aspects of the new economy to help my family prepare for what's coming. Sooner or later, it's coming. I just thought if we could see what was coming, we might be able to use them to make money so that we would be prepared to live in that economy rather than devastated by it. So you have two things: digital assets and distributed ledger technologies. They're neither good nor evil. They're just tools. Some tools that people offer to sell might be worthless, right? Even if you buy tools for your house. I mean, you know that there are tools out there that are so cheap, it's a waste of your money to buy them. They're also good tools. A handyman around his house knows that if he spends some money on good tools, it'll pay for him. But there's always people out there willing to break into your garage and steal your tools, right? Same thing with your digital assets and stuff. There's people willing to steal it. Always people that don't want to earn stuff that want to steal it. Now, we have very limited or no control over how other people used the same kind of tools, right? Like I said, I can use a hammer to build a house, or somebody else can use a hammer to smash you in the head. Same hammer. Now, years ago, I had heard of Bitcoin. I had some friends invested in it. In fact, when I first heard of Bitcoin, it was worth $300. I couldn't figure out how it was worth $300, much less $100,000 that it is now. So don't take financial advice from me, because I missed that. I missed the Solana investment, But in 2020, my son urged me to relook at crypto. And Sean's pretty smart. So I relooked at crypto because my son said, hey, there's an opportunity here. And it was becoming clear that not all digital assets and not all distributed ledger technologies were the same. In fact, I put those digital assets and distributed ledger technologies that perform needed functions, utilities, or improve business or serve some real utilitarian need in one category, and all other cryptocurrencies in another one. And that other one I referred to as Ponzi schemes. I'm not the only one doing this, right? Back in 2020, it wasn't at all clear which companies, which digital assets, which digital ledger technologies would prevail and be major players in the coming digital economy, and which ones would fall. It was completely unclear whether the shift, right, would happen in 5 years or 20 years. So we created some math models, my son and I, involving some speculative guesses, and estimated it would take about 10 years, for this to change. So in 2020, we weren't trying to guess the prices would be tomorrow or next week, or do what Bruce does and play the gap. We were looking at 10 years from then. What do we think the price of this asset will be in 10 years? And I'm not concerned about its ups and downs on the way. My concern is, will it get to that value in 10 years? That's why having it lose 35% of its value since February doesn't affect me, because I'm not selling this week. If it's still down 35% in 2030, I'll be crying, okay? Now, this plan that we laid out in 2020 was almost immediately stalled, especially when it comes to XRP, but really all cryptocurrency was stalled for the last 4 years because of who was president. But the speed at which it's catching back up, even with Congress taking 2 weeks off every month, seems like, is astounding how fast this is happening. And the world didn't slow down when the U.S. was on break. Whatever we did for the last 4 years, that little hiatus, they didn't slow down, they kept saying. But even back then, I could see the similarities to the B system. also had some difficulty with the fact that the decentralized control and unregulated environment of crypto made it an attractive playground for drug dealers and arms traders and every manner of swindler you could imagine. Okay, that's not pleasant to me. Do I want to be involved in something that has that? And I thought if I invested in any digital assets or distributed ledger technology, I would invest in those that were designed to be regulated and function in normal society. And I want to stay away from the schemes in cryptocurrencies. I didn't invest in a Trump coin or the Melania coin or any other meme coins. Those are schemes to take your money. I didn't see the digital economy as inherently good or evil. Like I don't see a tool as good or evil. It can be used for evil. But primarily based on research that my son had done, we made a modest investment involving funds that I could only afford to lose. And I want you, if you're listening to me, pay attention to this. Cryptocurrency is the Wild West. It's like gambling. Do not play in this pool unless you're comfortable if you end up with nothing, right? I didn't forget about that investment totally, but we didn't even look at it until after the election because there was a bunch of hype going on the internet and FOMO, fear of missing out, and this is the breakout we've all been waiting for. We're going to be at whatever. There's people predicting, we bought XRP in 25 cents, 42 cents. That they were talking about it going to crazy numbers like 10,000, 60,000. You're just kind of going, okay, that kind of return on investment is insane. So we looked at it, right, and started really investigating what was going on, right. And when I did, I noticed that I had missed things like Solana. And like I told you, a $5,000 investment in Solana would be worth about $450,000 today. That's a big miss, right? So I don't give financial advice, but I'm just showing you some things I'm seeing now in blockchain that have convinced me that some of the choices we made in 2020 were correct. Now, this is based on public information based by these companies or by articles about them. The Fed now is shifting to XRP, XLM, and HBAR. SWIFT looks like it's going to be replaced, at least substantially replaced, with XRP, XDC, Link, and HBAR. The DTCC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, is looking at using XRP and XDC. Archax, which is a London-based financial conduct authority exchange, is going to use XRP, XLM, HBAR, and Algo. Trump's talked about a U.S. reserve stockpile involving Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, ADA, and Solana, possibly others. Now, Trump has also said that stockpile is going to be favor American coins, which would take Bitcoin and Ethereum out of there. But he keeps mentioning Bitcoin, so you're getting a conflicting thing. But Bitcoin could be part of the U.S. reserve stockpile. He has not said that the U.S. is going to spend $1 buying any of this stuff. Most of our stockpile, digital stockpile, has come through seizures of people doing illegal activity. That's why Bitcoin is the large guy in the seizures, because people doing illegal stuff love Bitcoin. MoneyGram is saying it's going to use XLM. Western Union, XRP. Visa and MasterCard both say XRP, and Visa also adds HBAR. Right? You're starting to see a pattern here. Citibank said XLM. Bank of America says XRP. JP Morgan Chase is using XRP, XCN, and a JPM coin. Over 100 central banks around the world have already gone to XRP. NVIDIA and Seal SQ is using HBAR. IBM went to XLM. Facebook and Meta, right, is using XRP and XLM. X payments from Elon, right? XRP, XLM, HBAR, and Dogecoin is what they've been talking. We know Elon loves Dogecoin. Now, Starlink, HBAR, in their systems for Starlink, Starlink's not involved in doing it, but it's systems. HBAR is great for a lot of the stuff going on in AI technology and management things like airline flights and that kind of stuff. Data managing the traffic. HBAR is the looks like the best coin system for that. Aviation flight management. The FAA is talking about using HBAR for that. The Department of Defense already uses HBAR in a thing called DAG, right? You can see this, right? So if you can see a pattern there, I'm telling you, we saw that pattern in 2020 and place bets accordingly, okay? And I'm using bets and gambling language intentionally, right? Now, during the last administration, there was a seemingly intentional effort to cause the U.S. to fall behind. And if part of the goal of the World Economic Forum was for the U.S. to suffer, to go down to a lower standard of living so that they could equal out everything, then you'll understand why they did that. It was intentional. It seemed like a bumbling, blundering, half-conscious president. Somebody was making conscious efforts to hold us behind the rest of the world so that we would lose out with the shift. Trump's presidency came in and said, we're going to not only not be behind, we're going to lead. And he's pushing. We have a bunch of congressmen and senators sitting on their friggin' hands. Okay? But if they act this year, and it looks like they're going to, it's going to be kicking and screaming and a bunch of press conferences, we could actually catch up in 2025 to the world by the end of 2025. Now, what will the regulations look like in the U.S.? I expect them to look a lot like what's going on in the EU, right? They're going to have a lot of similarities. And the EU and other nations are already making it difficult to trade in certain coins, cryptocurrencies and stable coins. They don't like them because of the decentralized nature that made cryptocurrency. It was like the thing that, the early crypto investors all loved, that decentralization. Let's, buck the system. We're not part of the system. Well, I didn't think the government's going to allow that for too long. And they're moving rapidly to do it. When ISO 2022 becomes, it regulates the messaging that the company must, hear this? Not should, maybe, November 2025, you cannot make an electronic transfer between banks without using an ISO 2022 compliant system. The networks that handle XRP, XDC, XLM, HBAR, Algo, IOTA, ADA, and on have all declared that they are already ISO 2022 compliant. The networks that handle Bitcoin and Ethereum natively are not compliant. There's currently 2 solutions that have been proposed to help Bitcoin get around this compliance issue. One involves wrapping BTC in a token capable of running, right? So basically, you're converting it to XRP, you're sending it over and converting it back to Bitcoin on the other end, you're wrapping it, okay? And you run it on Ripple, which is a compliant network, right? Or you can tokenize the Bitcoin into something like HBAR, XRP, and XDC and send it. That could happen, but that adds cost and delays to the transaction, right? You may personally want to do that, but banks and institutions aren't going to do that. So you've heard me during this thing making a distinction between assets that solve problems and perform functions in distributed ledger technologies, in blockchain technology. And I've made a distinction between them and other digital assets, right? At Qatar, or Keter, Gutter, however you want to pronounce that, I've heard this pronounced a dozen different ways, but that little nation in the Middle East. They had a recent economic forum, and they were denouncing most cryptocurrencies as having no place in their country, while at the same time saying uh, distributed ledger technologies are going to have a big place. They're making the same distinction that I saw. Some of this stuff is Ponzi schemes, and I don't want to be involved in it. And some of this stuff is actually a real world technology, and they're separating it. It's not just Bill over here going, hey, there's a difference between a meme coin and something that actually produces something, right? We've seen statements from the leaders of the EU countries that their regulations of cryptocurrencies, and it's called MiCA, are not covering things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, the USD, and USDC. Those are two stable coins that the EU is not covering. It's not part of their stuff. They're not saying it's absolutely illegal to trade those, but they're now currently considering further regulation that might do that. Well, if you got your money in Bitcoin and Ethereum, or those two stable coins, USD or USDT, that could be concerning that they might not be spendable in Europe. Now, Marriott Elizabeth Meckham, she's the deputy governor of the Central Bank of Ireland, stated that Bitcoin and Ethereum are exempt from MiCA because they lack a central issuer, meaning that Bitcoin and Ethereum are not subject to the same licensing compliance and as centralized tokens, but that doesn't mean they can function under MiCA. They're not saying they're exempt from compliance, go ahead and use them. They're saying they're exempt from compliance because they don't fit in their system. And that's what the Bitcoin maxis love about Bitcoin. It doesn't fit in their system. Ethereum partly fits in their system, right? So while Ethereum's not directly regulated under MiCA, Ethereum-based decentralized applications, what are called DApps, and exchanges face that scrutiny of regulation. For example, the decentralized exchanges called DEX, like Uniswap, they're built on Ethereum technology, and they're unregulated, and are suspected to face future compliance requirements from the EU. The EU is currently debating whether or not you can use any DEX in the EU. China has imposed a blanket ban on cryptocurrency activities since September 2021, including trading, mining, and transactions involving Ethereum. Absolute blank. Ethereum's decentralized governance with no single controlling entity. The Ethereum Foundation holds less than 1% of ETH supply. It complicates regulation because who are you regulating? Countries like the EU and US struggle to decide who even is the issuer of ETH, Ethereum, raising questions, how would you regulate it? It need to be further clarified. The clarity bill that Congress just moved out of committee doesn't clarify this. The EU's MiCA doesn't clarify it. There's going to be more regulation coming. But companies like Bitcoin and Ethereum were designed to function independently outside government regulations. That's their attraction. That's what they were for. But governments are and willing and will continue to regulate the industry. So where does that leave these companies? Are they going to continue to function outside the system and fight the machine? Or are they going to be banned from use? And that's still to be decided. I didn't want to take the chance, right? I don't want to take the chance that I could own something worth $100,000 that the government would decide I can't spend anywhere. That's a problem. Now, there was a company, Circle, and it issued the mostly used stablecoin that's tied to the value of the US dollar. It means that the value of the US dollar affects the stablecoin called USD. You've seen me just mention USD, that EU is not regulating it. There was news articles that Ripple tried to buy Circle, and then Circle just went public, okay? And they're out there. But other companies have issued stable coins, like Ripple issued the RLUSD, and but the USD is the stable coin that dominates the market. The problem is that Circle has made no announcement about being ISO 2022 compliant by the deadline in November 2025. So if Circle isn't, and USD doesn't meet the regulations of the EU and may not meet the regulations in the United States, what are you going to do with your money in USD? Now, Tether's another one. It's an issue of another stablecoin called USDT. Tether has faced significant scrutiny regarding compliance with the European Union's markets and crypto assets, that MiCA regulation, and other global cryptocurrency regulations. As of June 2025, there is no evidence that Tether has either secured an EMI license to do business in Europe, right? Or what's called a CASP. And we're seeing Ripple accommodating the stable coins from many other countries on their network. And in the same way, it could accommodate USD and get it traded in a compliant network, the same way you would trade Bitcoin or Ethereum on a compliant network. But that complicates the movement. And if you were trying to stay anonymous, that anonymity disappears as soon as you go on that compliant network, because as soon as you're on there, part of that messaging is telling everybody who you are and what you're trading and who you sent your money to, where you got your money, how much you're spending, and who got it. That's all in the messaging. Now, I'm not an investment advisor. I want to make sure you're clear here. I made selections based on similar information that I'm showing you that my son had put together. And he said, Dad, it looks clear to me these are going to be the players. And like I said, we missed a major player. We missed Solana. We could have made a lot of money if we'd caught Solana. I made guesses based on that. That's educated guess. But I'm warning you, currently the cryptocurrency market is much like the Wild West. There's ample scams that'll steal your money, right? There's 100 ways to lose your money, your investment in cryptocurrency, and if you're not educated on what's going on. I often, like in cryptocurrency to gambling, betting on a meme coin is like putting your money in a slot machine. You might hit the jackpot. If you bought the Trump coin early in the day and sold it later in the afternoon, you'd have made a fortune, right? That can happen, but most people lost money. The Hawk Tour girl, she issued some meme coin, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. I mean, if you're taking your financial advice from the Hawk Tour girl, you probably have bigger problems than that. But what's going on? But I played poker for a lot of years. I made a lot of money playing poker. I and I tell people doing that I did it. And you got to study poker theory and what are the math involved in calculating odds and how big the pot could be and what could be your return on investment. When I'm playing poker, I'm constantly doing math in my head. Calculating this, is this bet worth the return I'm going to get? But even if I was a perfect master of poker theory and I could name the odds off the top of my head, I could still lose because luck's still involved. I sat down at the World Series of Poker one day here. Got the first hand dealt it out and had a pair of queens. I bet, I got raised. I knew that the raiser, I re-raised him, he called. I knew he either had a pair of aces, a pair of kings, or he had like ace king or ace queen. You know, he had a big hand. So I was either completely dominated or I was in a race where I had a 50-50 chance. The flop came and there was another queen. Now I had 3 queens. Now I was certain, no matter what he started with, I had the better hand. All the money went in. He turned over a pair of pocket kings. I had the 3 queens. I was well ahead. And on the river came the 3rd king. And I lost all my money, a whole stack right there. First hand, first person to get up and walk out of the room. And I'm good at poker. Luck plays a chance. And if you decide to get into this, you can be educated. You can make an educated guess looking at the charts I just showed you and still end up going broke. Be clear. And the way I talk about it being like the Old West is, remember they used to carry gold in a little sack Well, what if you drop that sack? You send it to the wrong location. What if somebody robbed you of your sack? And if you put the sack in a bank at a local bank and they robbed the bank, guess what? Your gold went away. There was nobody guaranteeing that. That's exactly what cryptocurrency is right now. You need to know what you're doing and protect your own asset. If you have a custodial wallet, like on an exchange, we have wallets on numerous exchanges. The exchange is protecting my wallet. But if the exchange goes under, my wallet goes with them. If the exchange gets hacked and all their money is taken, my wallet goes with them. So I pull most of our assets off on what's called cold wallets to add a layer of protection. That's something I would never have to do at the bank. I give the bank my money, and if they get robbed, I'm insured up to $100,000. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to think about how to protect my money. The bank gets scammed, I still win, right? That's not the case here. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you. This digital economy is coming, but whether or not you want to be involved, you're going to be involved. But you don't have to be directly involved. Like, we're directly involved. We're directly investing in cryptocurrencies, but I'm telling you, it is like the Wild West. And it has to be money that you're prepared that you could lose it all, and it's not going to affect you. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. The reason I didn't give back all my money when I no longer had money to legitimately risk at poker, and I quit cold turkey, was because you play different if it's money you absolutely need. And if I'm at a table with you and I know you need the money, I will take all your money before you leave, because you're going to play scared. I had to know that, recognize that, and I chose not to. So I know this is a lot, but I just wanted you guys to understand what's happening in the digital economy, how much it looks like the beast system that's coming, how Trump's version is different than the world economic version is. But all this is happening while we're being distracted with some riots. Pay attention. The magician's doing this. Over here, the real action's happening, right? So I'm going to put on a song. I know I'm over time already, but I'm going to put on a song. I'm going to play Knees because that's our Granny in the Rumble chat. I'll play Knees for her, and then I'll be back and talk to you quickly.
take me home. You were all I ever need. Jesus, you set me free. I will worship you alone. You will come to take me home. I fall down on my knees. I will bless the Lord. I lift my hands to Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Fall down on my knees. I will bless the Lord.
Okay, so welcome back. Thanks for anybody that's new. I see Travel for Fun new over there on Rumble, and different people that have popped in as your first time here. Thanks for being here. And yeah, Granny is most people get more conservative with their investments when they get older because we don't have time to make money again, right? That leaves less available for high risk investments like crypto. Okay, so that kind of stuff. But you're right, the computer industry, we started seeing that years ago, that the computer technology could be used by the Antichrist. AI has just taken that to a whole nother level, right? I'm telling you, it talks about the beast bringing a statue of the false prophet, or the false prophet bringing a statue of the beast to life. This could easily be faked with AI if that's what's happening, if that's what's being described. So there is, the technology definitely here to be used for evil. But I am, like I said, I just thought I would try to help people because this is, there's all kinds of new jargon people have to listen to and that. And Revolver, no, I didn't get involved in FNMA at all. I'm kind of stuck with our picks from 2020. In fact, if I've done anything, I've narrowed a few of them that we thought might be part of the scheme that apparently are not going to be part or a major player, that I'll cut them out of the portfolio and consolidate a little bit. I mean, we made picks in 2020 and I haven't brought in them at all. I am HODL, hold, diamond hands. I'm waiting for 2030. That's where I'm at. So it's an investment. I don't care if, like right now, I'm going to probably increase my investment in the next 2 weeks, and so I'll be happy if my XRP drops to $1.50. Everybody else will be panicking. I'm gonna buy a lot more at $1.50, and then I can get it at $2.25. But it's whatever you want to do, and that's where we're at. And thank you for listening to me. This is a really unusual stream for me. I almost never talk about cryptocurrency on my streaming. I might write something on Substack, but this is way outside of my normal streaming content. I stream Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Pacific time, usually for an hour. I'm way over that limit right now on Friday. Sometimes Fridays go long, but Mondays and Wednesday, I typically in a book of the Bible. I just finished Romans. Monday, we're going to start Esther. Okay? And then on Fridays, I call them Freaky Fridays. Sometimes I will do weird stuff, aliens, pyramids, whatever. It's usually something connected to Christianity, but not necessarily something you would get taught in church. And then on Tuesdays, I joined Neo. And there was so many questions came up on Neo's program today, I had to make a list for stuff that we can talk about on Friday. Next Tuesday. She broadcasts out of Central Time Zone at 10:30 Central Time. My times are Pacific Time. I still use the West Coast time, avocado time for some of you. because we in Hawaii don't do daylight savings, and that will confuse everybody. So I do the conversion. If I didn't see your question or comment, you want to send me a question, um, yeah, just email me, bill@discerningtruths.com, right? And you know, I will answer a question via email, but a lot of them turn into studies that become Freaky Friday streams. I always create a PDF of anything I teach. I put a lot of text on the screen, and I, it'd be death by PowerPoint in any other presentation, but I want to have a PDF for you so you can go check what I say and see if it's true. And that's a Discerning Truth group. I drop that PDF on Telegram. You can download it for free. Nothing I do is behind a paywall. Like I said, I do write on Substack, and on Substack, I'm not limited to religion. I mean, that's still going to be a major content, but I've written on why write different things, and I've written on cryptocurrency and this kind of subject before on Substack. I started on Cloud Hub. I love Cloud Hub. The people that took it over after Jeff Brain died didn't go in a direction I was happy in. Their last upgrade tanked all my followers, left me 2 friends, got rid of all my content. I just switched them off. So now if you want to find me and my replays, got to go to Rumble, Donahue Papa on Rumble. There's 13, I think there's 14 channels now under Donahue Papa. And then this one will be this program is going to be in the channel called Freaky Friday. But the problem with Rumble is you have to like all the channels. You can like Freaky Friday and not see what I do in New Testament books or Old Testament books. You got to go out and back in, kind of a pain. But it helps me with the algorithm if you do that. And then I stayed away from YouTube for years because it is kind of a communist platform with censorship issues. You got to watch what you say. And I finally went there. The best thing about YouTube is their playlist. You can have 100 playlists underneath your channel, and all they have to do is like your channel, Discerning Truth 534, right? So I have like, I don't know, 30 something, at least 30 something playlist on there. It lets me organize my replays better so you can find what you're looking for if you're interested in a specific subject. Both Rumble and YouTube have a Start Here playlist. If you're here for theology, start with the Start Here. It's your best shot. I do have a website, but I haven't done anything with it. I'm just holding the name, so there's nothing to see there. I always promote my good friend Michael Beatty. That's who played Knees, wrote and performed Knees. That song with him on the piano is just great worship. He does my video, my entrance video with the books flying and all that stuff. That was Michael's creation. He's really an artistic wizard. And he teaches the Bible 6 days a week. Takes Saturday off. On Sunday, he's in doing the Psalms with his wife Linda. The rest of the week he's in another book. Right now, what's it? First Kings, I think we're still in. I haven't listened to the replay yet today. I had a very busy morning. Michael and I did a bunch of Prophet Club episodes, 4 of them, not a bunch, looking at the false prophets today. We kept talking about doing another one. I leave it up here, but we've both been busy in our own lives, and even the last few trips I've made to California, passing through, we haven't even had time to have dinner with Michael and Linda. So, we're coming and going. He's busy with political stuff, and I'm busy with other things, and it just hasn't worked out for the Prophet Club. So hopefully one day we'll get back to it, but until then, I'd like to just hear it. And then, yeah, Revolver, you sold your Bitcoin at $1,200. Yeah, I could have bought Bitcoin at 300, and I thought it was a Ponzi scheme then, and I didn't buy it. I mean, if I'd have bought it and it's worth over 100,000 now, that'd been a pretty good investment. But I couldn't figure out what made it worth 300 back then. I sure don't know why it would be worth 100,000. But that's, everybody makes their own choices. Some people love Bitcoin. They love it. They think it's the best thing since sliced bread. And like I said, what makes Bitcoin great, the decentralized nature and Ethereum, it's the same thing that's going to make him not play well with the system and probably be excluded from the system at some point. I wanted to see what was in the system, what would work well that I could maybe make money with. So I made a bet based on something very different. But with that, I'm going to get out of here. I've already talked way too long. And thank you all. And God bless if you come back on Monday, and we'll start in the with the Book of Esther, an introduction to Esther. I have never taught Esther before. Should be fun.